All right. Welcome, everybody, to Sophie and Jana's first fireside chat. So, if you're wondering what are we doing here? What are we going to be talking about? What is the intention of this live chat that we're going to be doing? We're going to talk all about that today because we have a lot to say about the industry, where it's headed, a lot of the pitfalls that we're seeing, and just really here to demystify some things and debunk some things. For those of you that know us, we are all about keeping it real, exposing the truth, and really helping each and every one of you step into your power around your business. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jana Nixa, the Authentic Sales Coach. I teach people how to create high ticket offers that sell and then go about teaching them how to sell it. And Sophie, if you want to say hello.
Hello. Just FYI, it doesn't seem to be on your Facebook right now. So
Oh, boo. It's
live.
That's okay. You introduce yourself and I've got it on mine. I can see it.
Okay, you can. I'll see if I find it in a minute.
I'll tag you.
Oh my gosh, super excited about this. When Jana had this idea and she came to me, she said, you know what, let's do a fireside chat where we just kind of just expose the BS in the industry and really talk like behind the scenes and, help people figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Sign me up. That's all I needed to know. Then Jana and I have been working together for quite some time. So we align on so many things, but just to quickly introduce myself, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sophie B. I am a marketing and messaging strategist, coach and strategist, but really strategy. And I am on the other side of what Jana does, in so much as I help people to get their messaging figured out, to help figure out their storytelling and their marketing, and to help them drive leads through their funnel to their sales funnel, where Jana helps you close the deal. So essentially, I help you open the relationship and drive all the leads to your sales funnel, and then Jana helps you close them all in.
Yes. I wish there was a different word than close. Jana helps you connect with them and lovingly convert. I don't know. But messaging is one of those
things.
Is
a terrible word as well. Come on, we're talking people here. I know. I'm with you. Well, hey, if anyone wants to come up with better words for this, then by all means, we'll just recreate new words, because I'm with you.
I would love that. While you're at it, create a new one for sales as well, because it comes with so much baggage.
All of them, all the words.
Selling, it's not synonymous with sleaze. And the truth is, it's a huge part of your business, and you really cannot avoid it. And a lot of people try to do that. And so before we even dig into, just some of the things we're going to be talking about, I wanted to just empower you with this. This was one of those moments where this wasn't some part of some strategy or like something calculated. It was one of those inspirational, like intuitive hits. And I know Sophie and I, we talk so much offline about all of these things. And for me, it was just like, hey, I'm just going to reach out and see if she wants to do this. And, so we literally got on here. Like there's been, I think sometimes when we have these ideas, I don't know, should I not? And then it's like, let me go through this whole plan and like strategy and burp. And sometimes it's just about showing up and speaking your truth and trusting that those that are here for it and need to hear it and resonate with it, that's exactly how it all should happen. And if it excites you, that's enough. So we don't always have to do, just the hard stuff. Like, let it be fun, let it be easy and simple. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to say, I wanted to highlight that, because I think sometimes we tend to overcomplicate.
We do. And one of the biggest questions a lot of my clients ask me is, how, right? How do I do it? How do I do my marketing? How do I put this plan together? And I think one of the things that is so underestimated is the fact that marketing is so experimental. Like, yeah, there's some strategies. Yeah, there's some, some messaging things and tweaks and things that we can do. But ultimately, the best marketing is experimental. It's what works, and what works for one doesn't work for another. And it's not that all the strategies don't work. I'm sure you've all heard this before, right? There's every strategy works, but which one works for you? Which one's aligns to your skill sets? Which one feels the best for you in your business? And I think the thing that I find so many, especially online coaches in the sort of, I don't say starting out phase, but in those first few years, they're still looking for permission to do the thing. And it's like, I'm looking for that permission. Is this how I do this? Am I okay to post this? Am I okay to sell like that? And it's like, it's your business. Yeah, you are.
Right.
Well, just try it. See what happens. I think it's my new motto for all marketing. See what happens.
See what happens. And that's so true. And I remember feeling that way. Like, can you show me how to get it right? Like, can you show me what the magic secret super wonderful thing is? And that's what we have to embrace about this whole thing is the magic is in the doing the things like we're doing right now, like having yourself energetically available and open to like that next new vision, and then letting things drop in that excite you and feel good, and then you can attach a strategy to it. It doesn't all have to be like this calculated, figured out. It actually isn't. Like, we want it to be like this calculated, figured out thing. And I know so many coaches make it sound like you just plug A into B into C and it's a sure, safe. Seriously, no phone calls all day. And then that. And then it's just a super, what's my sure thing? And your sure thing is that you get to grow and you get to learn and you get to take each step and fail your way, for lack of a better word. I don't believe in failure, but fail your way to success. That's how this thing works. There is no perfect way,
There isn't. And, I was talking to somebody earlier about, the 12-hour TikTok ban that happened. And it's so interesting because, from any, not just that particular ban, but any social platform, when it goes down or when it twists or whatever happens, you see two types of people. You see the people go into pure panic, and the people who sit there go, this sucks, feel the feelings, and then go, okay, cool, how do I pivot? And I think so much of this goes back to the idea that your message is what grounds you, right? It's like when you have your message, but then when you have the skill sets to be able to build on any platform or do whatever it is you're doing, build your business anyway, it doesn't matter what tools get taken or shifted or changed, because you just know you can regrow it. There's this trust that comes with it. And somebody, I've heard someone say this a few times, but she said, once you make your first $1 million, it's inevitable that you'll make your second. You'll just do it faster the second time. So you kind of, whether you're making your first 100,000, 200,000, 6 million, whatever, it's not about the money. It's about the skills that you build and the trust that you build in yourself to know that it doesn't matter what happens around you. You will always just be able to rebuild that.
It is the most freeing. It's so funny for any of you, maybe over on LinkedIn, I don't know, that are in that corporate space or were in that corporate space. Like, I used to think that was such a sure thing and it was so safe, right? Like, nothing can, which was such a house of cards, no offense, but now looking back, the sure thing is me. Like, now I know, that I can walk into a ladies who luncheon place with my message. I can take it to a live with you. I can go, with my family. I mean, it doesn't matter. And let me be clear. This doesn't mean you're just selling all the time. That's not the point. But the point is you're so connected with it and you know exactly how to speak to it in a way that the person that you're meant to help, that person that is in need of what you have to offer, it just draws them to you. And, Myron Golden, who's a grand mentor of mine, says it works on you before it works for you. And I find that to be such a beautiful thing to lean into, because I wouldn't trade the growth and the resilience and the ability to be able to do that. Like you said, like, okay, TikTok stand, I know how to do this. I'll just do it again. Or, oh, I know how to create an offer. I'm kind of done with this one. I'll just do it again. And you have built a sure thing, quote unquote, with you. And it's such a cool feeling.
It is, because you just know you can pivot. It's like you just feel so grounded in it. So you're like, okay, cool. I'll pivot. I'll do something else. I'll do something over here. You just know that you can take those skill sets and just do them like wherever.
It's not, and the kicker, all that time, I never think of it being wasted the same way I don't ever really consider it failure, but all that time I was looking for the short. I feel like it's like Wizard of Oz. All that time I was looking for the short thing.
I actually just saw that.
I had the ruby slippers. I had to become the sure thing. And the most interesting piece is it's not in going viral, and it's not in building the perfect landing page or having the freebie that, like converts perfectly or whatever it may be. It's some basic skill sets, like you mentioned, like knowing how to speak your client's language, messaging, knowing what their hot buttons are. The same way a mom knows how to speak sometimes to their kids in a way to get them to do what they, to get them to listen and to get them,
hardest skill in the world.
you know what I'm saying? It's a nice thought, everybody. But, just the same way we know I definitely know what their hot buttons are. You know what I mean? And so it's the same, and being able to develop that skill set and then seeing how sales fit into that. But again, not in this way where you're like, buy my thing, but how you're bringing people through a simple sales process and selling, if you will, without selling at all. And when you know how to do those things well and then create an offer.
I think, what's interesting about it, you said earlier about like, it's not that you're selling all the time, and it kind of is, you are selling all the time, but you're not selling at the same time. It's like, you just can't
Selling
help
without selling all the time.
You're always selling without selling. You're always selling. You're always on. And I think, it's so interesting. You're talking about the whole, being your asset, right? You become the asset. You are the asset. But it's so interesting because I remember when I first kind of got into the whole industry, I would keep seeing these ads pop up about investing in yourself. And I remember feeling so annoyed by it because it was all this, I just thought it was just such a sales pitch. Like, ugh, now someone else just telling me I had to invest because they just want my money to do it. Now realizing, nope, they were absolutely right. I mean, I think it felt manipulative though at the time because I didn't feel like I had control over what I was actually purchasing because I'd only ever experienced really terrible sales where I felt pressured into a sale. But once you get out of that rhythm, you realize you get into you find yourself in spaces where there's, people are selling to you from a much more neutral standpoint of, is this right for you or not? It gives the power back to you. And I think at that point, that was the shift for me. It was like, oh, I get to choose what I spend on and what I invest on. And I became much more intentional with what I was actually, spending on and building my skill sets and assets and whatnot. And then that way, I felt all of a sudden didn't felt like I was being pushed and pressured into a sale because choice was mine.
Absolutely. And I think also bringing your power back around, like, is this the thing that's going to be the perfect thing? Here's the thing. You're building, the way I like to look at it, is a bridge across the river. There are certain pieces that have to come in, right? Like there's skill sets that have to be learned. There's growth that has to be had. No one gets to skip steps, and there is no shortcut. Like each piece has its place. And so when I started understanding that and just embracing that, then I became more of an empowered buyer because I would be like, ooh, that's my next missing link. That's my next like link in the bridge, or, stepping stone on the bridge. I need to go get that instead of like, oh my God, I hope this program's the whole bridge. And if it's not the whole bridge, I'm going to die. Because now you're entering into this with like, they say scared money never really moves. It's just, and that's just it. Like we can't invest. We have to empower like ourselves around investing in our business the same way you would empower yourself around investing in going to business school. Like you're like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do this instead of like, if this thing isn't the answer to all my prayers, I'm just going to, shrivel up and die.
I think a lot of people grossly underestimate how much they're actually going to spend on building their skills over the lifetime of their business. I know I certainly did. I fell into that. Oh gosh, this is the one, and that's it. It's the only program I'm ever going to need. And once I found the program that was all I would ever need in that category, sure. But then I was like, but I know this part. And I think the other thing people tend to do, especially in the newer area, is try to build too many different skill sets. They go too wide without going deep. Whereas I think, what's really interesting, and one thing I noticed, early on about you was that you're like, no, this is my genius. This is what I'm going to, invest in getting better and better and better. And when I say invest, it doesn't necessarily mean spending on a coaching program. That could be reading a book or practicing the skill. You're investing
focus,
money, energy, focus, into that thing. And you were like, no, these are my genius zones. This is where I'm going to invest my time, my effort, my money, my things. And then I'm going to outsource to people who are better at me at doing different things. And well, look at what happened. Your business kind of did what, it had overnight success. I'm cautious to say overnight because you and I both know that overnight
was
success.
A long night.
It was a very long night. Decades of sales experience behind it, right? But in this business, right, that was when the overnight success came. Was when you said, I'm going to focus, and I'm going to focus on what I'm good at, and do that thing. So, I think there are a lot of. I've said this before, but I think especially the coaching industry tends to attract a lot of people who are incredibly caring and who are incredibly empathetic and want to help the people, that are maybe they feel are broken. I hesitate to use the word broken as well because people are never broken, right? But it tends to attract a lot of these people, and a lot of people who also feel they have to do it all by themselves. And there's one thing I've learned over this, all the time I've been in this industry. Fast track to burnout. don't do it.
Well, you're not meant to. And I really, no judgment, because I think everybody has their reasons, but I think that it's sometimes these bigger gurus are a little bit misleading, and not just with like what they really need to focus on, but when. Like the operative word is sequence. They're like, if we're talking about building a bridge, right? There's certain things that have to go, posts have to go. I don't know anything about building a bridge, but I'm going to do my best. Like, posts have to go in the ground first. You know what I mean? Like, the frame has to be framed out next. Then we fill in the board. And so if you start trying to fill out the boards without the foundation and the base, then you're like, what am I missing? I don't understand. And I definitely did that. I had no idea. Like, I was told I have to build an email list, and by golly, I was going to do it. Still didn't have an offer, and I still wasn't clear on my message, and certainly didn't have anywhere I was actually taking them to, but I'm going to build my list because somebody said that's what I need to do. That is a scaling activity.
I don't think the big picture is not often talked about. Right? We see these ads pop up, or we see these one program being sold as, and the positioning is a big thing, right? It's like, and like, okay, this will help you get clients. Okay, but how and what piece of the puzzle? Like, as you said, it's scaling. So, if we think of the three phases where we're building a business, we're growing a business, and we're scaling a business, I think the problem is that what we see, usually, especially from, the bigger people who are more established, we see their scaling. We're not seeing the building blocks. We're not seeing the growth. We're seeing their shiny funnels that in their scaling phases, right? They're already scaled their businesses, right? So, and I think, you and I have talked about this a lot, and I know this was an aha for you at one point too, especially in the high ticket. A lot of high ticket people selling high ticket are trying to build high ticket businesses based off low ticket sales funnels. And they're different. And so, but then, not, again, no judgment on any of this. I did the same thing. I tried to build the wrong thing with tried to mismatch them all, because it's what I thought I had to do, because I was, observant, and I was like funnel hacking, and I was doing all the seminars, and I was trying to put them all together, but I wasn't seeing the bigger picture. I didn't
Mhm.
understand how it all came together. I didn't understand the model behind it, or how traffic moved from one to the other, or how it was all the mechanics of it were working. And I think that's common, because there's not many people out there that are talking about it, unless, of course, you buy into their, you know, really, really, really high ticket programs. But also, I don't think most people starting out are actually ready for that stuff anyway, because the building stage is the building of the skills. It's the building
Yes,
of the skills, the individual skills, that will then
to
allow you to deliver.
execute. To
Mhm.
execute the strategy. And, I work with a lot of action takers, being a big action taker myself. And that's, I hit the ground running. I guess I need to learn how to go viral. I guess I need to build a website. Okay, let me go ahead and get that high converting lead magnet that I had no idea. Like,
Mhm.
how do you know until you get some of those fundamental pieces down? Like, what
Mhm.
does my ideal client really, really want? And what are they really willing to invest in?
Mhm.
What of that is really my zone of genius? And how can
Yeah.
I create an offer that they want, not the offer I want? And then, then how do I go about getting it in front of them? Like, how do I learn how to speak their language? And, those are the fundamental pieces that we often, it's like, oh, I'm one funnel away. But it's
Mhm.
like, but they have failed to mention, or I failed to hear, you're one funnel away once you know exactly what your product is and who you're selling it to and how
Mhm.
to communicate about it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's not
It's tough as well, because it's like a chicken and an egg as well, in some
that
respects.
is
Because
so true.
when it comes to, the best, I mean, I say the best messaging. I mean, messaging, I think that it evolves, right? It doesn't just, oh, this is your one and done messaging, but
Mm-mm.
messaging doesn't really start to take shape and start to attract more and more clients until you have the clients that you've worked with to be able to establish the messaging in the first place. So it's like, what comes first, the messaging or the person? And I think a lot of people out there are putting this message out that says, pick a niche, pick a niche, pick a niche. But it's really hard to pick a niche if you haven't worked with the people to know what the niche is. And
Yeah.
so you kind of, my reverse on this is, you pick a few kind of to play with, but the people actually come first. But then the question is, well, how do I get the people? So it's like there's this internal battle that's going on. But and I think the message here really is to, uh, especially for, the high achieving action taking people who are used to being in that hustle, used to being in the go and just making it happen, is that you really do have to slow down.
You
You kind
really
of have to take
do.
a back step and say, you know what? I'm okay where I am, and I'm going to spend the time to build the skills, to build the communities, to build the connection, to get the programs and all the things set up and working, and sell it at the same time. Right? It's not like you'd have to say, right, I'm not gonna make money for the first year or two. You totally can make money doing it, but to allow yourself to build, then to grow, and then to scale, and not rush to scale, because that's when a house of cards happens, right? Like, been there, done that, got too many t-shirts.
Well, it's just so many hats and so much to manage, which is why, I built it after some of this trial and error. It was like, okay, what do I really need? What is the most fundamental pieces? Like you said, I had to stop. I had to stop adding. Oh, I just need to do more. I got to be on more platforms and I need to go more content. I just got more, 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 when it was really like, no, no, no. What are the fundamental pieces that you need to really make this train start going? And then, wait for it, messy action.
Mhm.
Because you don't, like you said, the chicken or the egg. Often I'll tell my clients, like, you've got some horses here, pick one, pick two, right?
Mhm.
Like, just start moving in that direction and speaking to it, and clarity will come with action. And
Mhm.
so I think that's another piece,
Yeah.
even you've got the action takers that are just moving so fast they can't see the forest for the trees. And then you have the others who want it to be 100% crystal clear before taking action. So they're sitting there like on the side of the pool, like thinking about how to swim instead of getting in the pool and just learning to
Mhm.
swim. And by the way, I love this analogy because I don't know what it's like where you grew up. The first thing we had to learn to swim was like it was called froggy on the back. So you have to like full on trust, surrender, and
Mm.
relax. before you could even do the things, right? It was like, you have to become one with the water, essentially. Then you get to add in these other pieces and layers. But until you have that foundation, you're just going to be dog paddling all over the place and wearing yourself out. And I was like, oh, this is so good, because it's true and it's scary. Like, I hated learning how to float on my back because it went against everything, you know?
And I think, that it comes back, I think a lot of entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship because they like control. I'll put my hand up and say, I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. I wanted to be in control of these things. And so it's interesting because a lot of it is allowing yourself to surrender to that and say, okay, I'm going to release the control here, release the control, just let it go. And I think this really shows up is that I think a lot of people, when they start, at least this is true for me and a lot of my clients, is that we start thinking we are going to build something. And because we think that that's how it's going to go, that's the expectation. Oh, I'm going to build a business that looks like this, and I'm just going to do the steps to make it happen. And when you get there, you're like, oh, that didn't take shape the way I expected it to at all. And I think what I've learned, at this point anyways, is that I know what the next goal is. I haven't got a freaking clue how I'm going to get there. And that's okay, because I've recognized that the opportunity comes from not knowing how to get there and letting go and releasing the how, right? It's like, okay, I know it's going to happen. It is happening. I know that every time I show up and do something, because I'm using the skill sets to be able to do it, that's happening, and it's happening. But I don't know exactly the steps. And I think a lot of there's this transition where you get so stuck in, okay, I'm going to do this and that. No, this is not the how. We've got to come back. And if you said to me when I started, what is a 6-figure business going to look like to you? I would have given you a map and said, well, it's going to look like this. I'm going to sell this amount of this programs. That is not how it happened. Not even close. Yeah. The way that revenue came into my business wasn't even in my field. I didn't even know some of the ways I've made money even existed. But I think the openness and the ability to surrender and release the how is a huge part of that. Huge part of that.
Well, and I think that is the magic in all of this. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about here is working with the energetics of that, is understanding like your ego and it when it's trying to get involved, and how to recognize that piece, and like how to be sort of like at one with the process, but not caught up in the how. Because if anybody listening, you out there, think about big things that have happened in your life. Like, what percent of that did you full on just like direct and make happen? And how much of it was synchronicity and happenstance and the right place at the right time, and this crazy idea that you had you just fell out of nowhere, you had no idea. And so building a business is no different. And I think the most beautiful piece, that if there's any muscle that I wish somebody would have told me to really develop earlier on, is the ability to just go one breadcrumb at a time and just follow the next right thing, and be okay with that. And that trust of like, clarity will come with action, and just keep moving in that, and not, I gotta go figure it out and see all the pieces and and then I can, that kind of energy is not going to help you. And then the other piece that's, I think, was a big turning point for my business was no longer measuring how far it was to where I wanted to go, and turning behind and looking at how far I've come. And when I started to measure, it's actually from a book, The Gap and the Gain, and 10x is better than 2x. And they talk about this concept, but when we could, you think it's failing, right? You're like, oh, that didn't work, or, oh, that program was garbage, or, oh, what a waste. But it's not, because it all comes back around. I bought a YouTube program in 2020. And then, 6 months later, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do YouTube. Blah, blah, blah. But guess what? I am now. And it all came back around because it's a cumulative thing. And I had that skill set that I just had to lean back into when the time was right.
And
And
I find
that's
that so fascinating. Like, and you're so right. I was thinking of this the other day because it's like sometimes we think that we've released things and they've gone and they're in the past and we don't need them anymore. And then they come back around and you're like, oh, that's why. So it's that, I think it's the idea that, everything is working for us. In the timing it's going to work, and sometimes things will pop up and sometimes not until years later and you're like, oh, that's why I did that. That's why that happens. That's how that applies now. It's like, I think this is one sort of small example, but when I first, I think it's 2019, when it was right as I was, going through my own personal stuff, and I turned to TikTok, and this is when I was my whole life was a bit up in the air, going, I don't know what's happening with my life. And at the time, I made a lot of mistakes on that app, but at the same time, I grew a community, and a big one at that, for really short period of time, and ended up kind of coming off the app and then really starting to build a business. But it was so interesting because what I didn't realize at the time, because at the time I was like, it was so pointless that I did that. Why was I just showing up and just spewing my stuff on the internet? And why was I just using it as therapy? But on the flip side of that, I was also building skills, video skills. I was building, the ability to show up and be visible, which put me so much further ahead once I said, okay, I'm going to build a business now. Because showing up on camera, I didn't realize at that point that was a fear that a lot of entrepreneurs had. I don't want to show up on camera. That's scary. What do you mean it's scary? I've been doing that for the last year. I've been spewing my stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
So it's like all these little things, they all kind of line up and come together, and we can use it all. And I mean, I'm sure I got better examples of that, but
that's a great example, because what I hear you say, and I think what I was trying to say, nothing's wasted. It's not wasted. It's all cumulative. Even way back when I was going live on Facebook, because by golly, somebody told me that that's what I have to do every weekend, be consistent and add value. And I had no clue how to talk to my ideal client. And I wasn't sure I knew, of course, I'm a sales coach, and I knew I could help them with closing, and I knew I could help them with, those pieces, the sales process, but I was still not clear on all of, like, what is the whole point? And how am I speaking to their problem in their words, right? Like you told me, what's keeping them up at night? Like that wasn't it for me. It was like somebody said, do tips. Somebody said, be consistent and add value. So, there was a period there building my business. I was like, well, now I can't just got on there and but now, like when it was time for me to start my podcast last year or 2 years ago, God, has it been? Yes. Or like doing my YouTube, just hanging here with you. Like now those reps were in, buddy. It wasn't a waste. It was just more gain, so that when I did get those other pieces figured out, it was like click, 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 boom, just off like a rocket.
The other thing too, you never know what opportunity is going to, I was like, you wrote this post a number of years ago, maybe last year, I don't know when it was, but about the bamboo, right? How bamboo like grows 12 feet underground or something. And then it just sprouts practically overnight and grows like crazy. I often think about that because it's such a good analogy. Like that's exactly how this overnight success works, right? And it's like you just never know when your bamboo is going to shoot. You never know what video, what connection, what person you speak to is going to be the thing that takes your business to that next level. Like there's no way of knowing. And I think, again, that we put, especially type A's, put so much pressure on that next piece of content, that next connection, that next video being the thing. And then it becomes frustrating because it's like, well, I'm so frustrated now because that didn't take off the way I expected it to. That didn't do what I wanted it to do. And then it sort of becomes that, it's a waste of, why did I waste my time and energy doing that? Versus, as you said, like, okay, it's not wasted, right? It happened. Also, sometimes, which I always find really fascinating when this happens, but every now and again, I will have someone come through my funnel from a link from like 6 months, 8 months, a year ago. And it always baffles me. I was like, where did you find that?
Yeah.
So you never know. I had part of my funnel. I did this YouTube. Was it like some YouTube live type thing with someone who once upon a time, and they have one of my links in it. And for the longest time, I didn't even think about it. And I was going through a lot of my funnels sort of a month or so ago, and I was like, I didn't even know this was still active. All of these leads were going through these people. I was like, wasn't even in my brain at that point. It was something I did in the past. But so I think it's really interesting how people can actually find you, and how, past things can also come back up. And it's like,
Yes.
compound. I think that's what I'm getting at here. Is it compound?
It
Right?
is.
It's not one thing that just, it's what is that next one thing? And I think here's where the system comes in, right? It's like, are you ready for that one thing to blow up? Because if you're not, then what? I always remember this story a coach of mine once upon a time told me. And she worked in PR, and she had a client who came to her and asked her to do the PR. And she did her job fantastically well. And they, I think it was millions or something in the millions came to this person's website. They did their job that well that all of a sudden, overnight, literally millions of people showed up from this one article. And they called her like really upset by this, like really upset by it. And she's like, well, what's the problem? Like, you wanted me to get traffic to your site. We got you in a news article, and now millions of people are seeing your site. He's like, yeah, but it's crashed, and we have no way of following up with these people. And she's like, oh, you have no sales system. She's like, well, I mean, she learned from it. She's like, okay, that's a conversation I have to have with my clients, right? She's like, but that's not really the problem. I did my and I see this all the time, right? It's like people get to this, they'll have a viral video, or they'll have something that, blows up. And then it's like, okay, cool. What did you do with it? Nothing. Oh, why? Well, there's no system behind it. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just more eyeballs. I think that's a big misconception. And, I feel like intuitively that some of that is because the rise of the influencer and the coach and the online business sort of like came about and coincided. But more followers did not equal more sales. More leads does not equal. I can't tell you how many influencers I've worked with that are broke, and they're even getting on calls, but because they're not intentional, the people don't know what they're really on there for. Next thing you know, they just want to hang out, and it's because there is no sales process, and they're certainly not buying. So, it really is understanding those basic pieces so that you can take, what you are doing and make it work for you. And, it's like I always say, like, more leads is not going to fix a sales problem. That's not it.
Not, it's, I mean, my story about how I drove 10 million leads into a brick wall with no sales system.
Yeah.
Before I even figured out the sales piece of this. But it's interesting because with the TikTok ban that just happened, and I went back to TikTok for that 12 hours when the US weren't there and Canada was. So I was just kind of going through, and it was seeing the shifts. But my account hasn't grown on TikTok for probably 2 years. It's been pretty stalled. It's been pretty stagnant. Now, I haven't really shown up there either, so it's not really surprising yet. It's not set up for monetization. But I kind of was like, you know what? I'm just going to play with this and see what happens. I posted a few videos, and within less than 2 hours, I had 300 new followers. I was like, oh, okay, so there's a shift here. But I suddenly was like, well, hold up. What's happening here? And I realized it's like, okay, this isn't set up for monetization. The audience that I have over there is an audience that I grew, back when, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing now, even though this, I could absolutely shift it. I was like, so why am I doing this? Oh, wait, ego boosts and dopamine hits. I was like, I'm in Canada. I don't have access to the Creator Fund. And so it's like, okay, well, again, refocus. What are you going to do here? Are you going to set this up for monetization, and are you going to keep growing it, and you're going to funnel people through the way you do on your other platforms? Or are you just going to keep doing this for the dopamine hits and influencer style and ego boosts, right? So I think a lot of people do that. It's like they don't know why they're there. They don't know what the intent is. And they're there for, you hear it all the time. I just want this to be fun, and I want to see what I want. It's like, well, what are you doing with your time? And
right.
Mindset shift for sure. Like, I was definitely that person. And now I'm like, this is a waste of my time. Scrolling is a waste of my time.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's really, even doing these things, there's still, even though it was an intuitive sort of on a whim, it wasn't like in our action plan for 2025, we still there's still an intention there, right?
Mm.
It's still having a conversation that we know our ideal client, helping them come to some realizations, maybe have some aha moments.
It's grounded in message.
Mm-hmm.
It's grounded in message. I think that's the biggest thing, right? And I think the thing with, whenever I've grown anything from the angle or lens of an influencer, I think a lot of, influencers do as well, is it's not grounded in a message necessarily. I mean, some of them are. Some of them do an incredibly good job at it. They are missing some pieces, but they have a message. Others, it's just I grew this massive audience based on that one viral video that went off. Okay, great. What are you going to do with it next? Right? What are you going to, word of the day, intent. What's the intent?
And to be smart about it. Like, I saw a question that somebody asked. I use this with my clients as an example all the time. I don't want to say it exactly, but it was basically like, tell me your goal and I'll tell you what's in the way. She had like 400 comments. So I commented and went, sort of hacked her funnel, and it just went to her Facebook page. So there was an intent there, but there's not really a sales process there. You know what I mean? Like, yes, fine. They're coming to your page now, they're going to follow you. But is that not, there's a far more effective and strategic way to capture all of those leads and bring them through a simple sales process.
I mean, you and I both know too, though, I think a lot of it is just not understanding the process, right? It's not understanding the buyer behavior. It's not understanding how somebody moves through a sales process. And, I see the same thing. And remembering too that, I mean, once upon a time, driving people to a website was the thing to do, right? It's like driving to a website. And sure, you can drive people to a website. The problem I think we have now is there are billions of websites. There are, we've as humans, we've got, our attention span is worse than a goldfish. I don't know about you, but I am the tab queen. I currently have at least 25 tabs open on my computer, right? So if I'm looking at something and then the dog barks or the doorbell rings or I'm busy in something, I'm going to get distracted. And unless it's, something that I've intentionally gone to, that website's going to get forgotten about and the sale's going to be lost. So it's like, I like to think of them as open doors. If you're driving someone to a Facebook profile or you're driving them to a website or even, a sales page as your last point in the funnel, but you're not doing that from a contained space, you just got open doors all over your funnel that people just keep walking in and out of. So it's definitely strategy. I could talk about strategy all day long.
We will. And that's exactly what this is intended to do, is just really help shed some light for some people who maybe felt like I did a few years ago. I was like, I don't understand. Like, what am I missing? And, what are the income producing activities, right? What is a high ticket? I almost like to call it a human funnel versus a low ticket funnel, and what are the pros and cons to each? Like, what does it really take to hit that first 6-figure month, year, like whatever your goal is? And so we're gonna debunk some of the things. And what I told Sophie at the beginning of this is my intention here is to have conversations that I really wish somebody had just sat me, and maybe I already said that, or I can't remember if I said it on here before we talked, but like, there's a lot of things I've learned along the way. I was like, dang, I wish I would have known that earlier, even though it all happens as it should. But, it was very like big aha moments for me that made this process a lot easier and a lot easier to embrace and not constantly feel like maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe this is, whatever doubt that seeps in, and just knowing how to manage that. And what it is a self-discovery process.
I think too, I think some of this stuff was maybe I heard it, I didn't listen to it.
Maybe right. That's the other piece. Like, how many times was this actually said? And I'm like, just give me the strategy. I don't whatever about that.
Same thing. Just do the strategy. Oh, well, look at all those mistakes I made. And that's part of the process, right? But if we can help speed this up so that someone out there doesn't have to go through that whole process and can just get to the sales part and, have the business they want, then we've won.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel that there's things that maybe, just having worked with clients and them understanding some of the things that we're talking about and taking a lot of stuff that's on their plate that they're doing that's not working, and maybe not in the right sequence will work later, and really helping them focus on the income producing activities and the pieces that they need to focus on first to really set themselves up, right? And so that's really the intention here, and to help people with the energetics piece as well, right? Like,
I think one of the things too, and one thing I'm really big on is really helping people to see the bigger picture, but really understand what model they're building first, because what model you build is going to determine what skill sets you need, who you hire, who you work with. Like, at the end of the day, if you're building a low ticket funnel, right? If you're building a low ticket funnel and you're just doing low ticket sales, and you're building out that kind of frenzy buying, so to speak, and those order bumps and all the things that go with low ticket, then hiring a high ticket sales coach doesn't make sense, and vice versa, right? It's like if you are wanting to do high ticket and you're trying, and you go and hire somebody who's going to teach you how to do build a low ticket funnel, it's not going to work out very well for you. So one of the things I really like to shed light on is what does that actually look like for you? What does your funnel look like? What skill sets do you have? Which ones do you need? And who do you need to support you along that journey? Because that's where you can get to where you want to go faster. But I don't think enough people really sit down, at least not the people I've met, which is hundreds of clients at this point, have really sat down and understood that, because there's no, like you said, it's not really talked about a whole bunch. You just see people saying, this is the way you build this is the way you make money. This is the way you make money. This is the way you do it. And it's like, well, actually, there are all ways to do it. Which way do you want to do it? Right? Because at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I don't have the capacity to run brand deals and UGC and affiliates and high tickets and low tickets and mid tickets and every other tickets and all the things. Like, I just don't know.
right.
So,
well, and what I like to say, and what you shared there, is like, all strategies work so long as you have the skill set and the mindset to execute it. And I think that's the disconnect. People are constantly looking for the shiny magic bullet thing, when what they have to really focus and lean into is, what is the things that are, it's like, there is no perfect car without gas. Like, you got to have the gas to make the car go. And so instead of like, I just need this car, and if it's this, no. All the cars will go so long as you have gas in the tank. So focus on getting that gas in the tank, and you can pick whichever car you want. But if you think you're going to pick a car that's going to go without gas, then, you're going to be searching for your shiny magic bullet forever, when it's not about the car. It's about the ability to put the gas in it.
And drive it too. You got to drive it.
Yeah, I love my analogies.
They're good. I like your analogies too.
I just want to, it's just, I think, helpful for people to understand that they're two different pieces, and strategy is not the same as skill sets that you need to execute.
It's not. And I've said this, I think I said this to you before, maybe I said it on here, but strategies are a dime a dozen. You can go and build your entire funnel in less than 3 seconds on ChatGPT or any AI now, right? Go up, I want to build this type of business, tell me a step-by-step plan, and do it in 3 months. Done. There is your strategy. Now follow it. Right? That's it. That's all. You just saved you thousands of dollars. You're welcome. Like, that's how you do that, right? But ultimately, the reason there aren't, we're not all billionaires walking around, is because most people don't have the skills to do that. Like you said, the strategy is one piece, but do you have the mindset, the skill sets, the energy to actually become the person who is going to now operate that strategy that you've just printed out? are you going to stick to it too, right? Shiny object is a big thing in the strategy world.
Yeah.
Don't like that strategy. That's not good enough. Let's try this. That didn't work for the first month. Now you're like, it's ugh. Go on.
Right. Which is exactly why you want to step into your power. Like, how do I want to serve my clients? Like, what do I want it to look like? And then build that strategy around that. And then go about acquiring the skill sets to execute it. So I hope you guys, is there anything else you wanted to add? Because I was going to close us out for today.
I think we've gone over by a lot.
Definitely. We were going to keep it to a half hour. But of course, Sophie and I love, this stuff we could talk about forever, because
24-hour live stream in our future.
What's that?
24-hour live stream in our future. Just answering
24 hours a day. But if there's anything I'll leave you with, it's really embracing the becoming of the person that gets the results. Because it will happen. It is divinely in you. There's a reason for it. And as long as you can know that and breathe into that certainty and just be along for the ride of like, okay, well, I got to learn how to do some of these things and go about getting the support to learn them. Your success is inevitable. There's no secret. Nobody's keeping stuff from you. It's work. And that's okay because it's worth it. And so I hope you guys liked this. We're going to be doing this every other Tuesday, I think at 3:30, right? Is that what we decided? And so what we would love to hear is like, based on everything that we talked about, like what questions came up for you? Like, where would you like us to, is there anything that we touched on that you'd like us to go deeper on? Because we're just going to get on here and riff and really just let it flow and let some of what needs to be said and say the hard thing that nobody else wants to say. And I'm here for it. What about you, Sophie?
I'm here for it too. So let's do it. We're doing it.
We're doing it. Catch us, say hello, let us know that you're listening. Share this with somebody that maybe needs to hear some of these things, because that is exactly what we're here to do, to be of service and to really shed some light on this process for you guys. So I hope you'll check in with us 2 weeks from now, and we'll be sharing more about like what we'll be talking about and maybe giving you guys some reminders and things. But we just appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.